Do you know that 60% of Iranian university students are actually females and only 40% are males? Do you know that 70% of Iranian STEM students, students in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, or medicine, are actually females, and only 30% of them are what? Are males. There is a backstory to that. Let me explain to you. Like I said in my previous video, Iran is a country that invests massively in its people and especially their education, because an educated populace is a populace that is well kitted, that is well armed, and that can stand to be counted when trouble comes knocking for that country. You see, immediately after the Islamic Revolution in 1979, as led by Imam Khomeini, as against the next supreme leader after him, Imam Khamenei, who was succeeded by his son, Mujtaba Khamenei. Please, I want you to note the differences between the names. Khomeini first, then Ali Khamenei, the father, next, and then Mujtaba Khamenei, the son, next. Khomeini, he's not related to Khamenei in any manner. Now, immediately the Islamic Revolution of Iran kicked off in 1979, the leaders of Iran discovered a gaping gap. And what is that gap? That gap is that by far more men were in the medical and science profession compared to women. Because of that, they had an embarrassing Islamic problem. What is that embarrassing Islamic problem? You see, the ideal scenarios in countries that profess to the Islamic system, is that it is female doctors that should treat female patients, especially in sensitive situations when it has to do with obstetrics and gynecology. There are privacy issues, there are body part issues, there are exposure issues, and the ideal scenario, in an Islamic system is for female patients, to be taken care of by female doctors, especially in the O&G, obstetrics and gynecology, mother and child, medical ecosystem. Now, there were by far more doctors who were males than females. Iran wanted to solve that problem. Do you know what they did? They went to every secondary school in the country, and they started headhunting the most brilliant girl child in each school, and they packed them, into a cohort, into an academic cohort. What is that academic cohort? They essentially wanted to create miracle doctors. What do I mean by miracle doctors? In Nigeria, you spend 6 years to become a medical doctor. 1 year pre-med, when you study physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, whatever. 2 years preclinicals, when you study anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, pathology, pharmacology, and then 3 years clinical sciences, where you study O&G, pediatrics, surgery, medicine, psychiatry, and other allied fields, making a total of 6 years. Nigeria has one of the shortest medical programs in the world. In the US, you can spend as much as 10 years, if not more, before you can graduate to become a medical doctor. Do you know what Iran did? Iran ran those young, exceptionally brilliant girls through a 4-year MBBS program. Iran essentially collapsed a 6-year MBBS program into a 4-year MBBS program. Iran was now churning out MBBS, female MBBS products at the rate at which you will churn out BSc products. That is why I consider them to be miracle doctors. But you see, those girls were of exceptional intelligence and exceptional mental acumen. So the vast majority of them actually coped and survived. So the 1 year of pre-med, physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, and the 2 years of preclinicals, pharmacology, pathology, anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, Iran collapsed those entire 3 years into 1 year. So 3 years worth of academic work, those young and brilliant and exceptionally studious students, girl children were doing it in 1 year, and then they just added 3 years of clinical medicine, and they were trying out doctors in 4 years, miracle doctors. And guess what? It worked. It worked so well that Iran became the second largest contributor of medical doctors to global health interventions. When you see earthquakes, when you see floods, when you see natural disasters, the country that usually gives out the largest number of doctors to such relief efforts is Cuba. And the next country after Cuba happens to be Iran, the vast majority of whom are women. In Iran, we now started, they now started seeing young women. Women you would think are undergraduate medical doctors, but they are actually consultants, specialists in their field, post MBBS. In that time space that you will expect an average Nigerian girl child, to run through 6 years of MBBS, do house job, do 1 year of NYSC, return to the residency program, fail a number of times, and probably start emerging, post-residency somewhere between the 30s and 40s. You will see the average girl doctor in Iran. She will actually look like an undergraduate medical student, but she will actually be a consultant, a fellow in her field. And that was because the country needed them. The country needed female doctors, female specialists in O&G and related fields to start taking care of female, patients as per the standards, the Islamic standards of the Islamic Revolution. So as a result of that, trying to become doctors, trying to take advantage of that national opportunity now became the fad in Iran. Essentially, every girl child now became, everything became aspirational for them in not just the medical field, but generally in the STEM field. It made absolute sense, financial, economic, social, cultural, for the girl child to demonstrate as much academic sagacity as possible, because the government was ready to pump funds into these girls, put them on scholarships, make them comfortable, get them fantastic jobs after school. It was state policy, to essentially gobble as many girl children as possible and suck them into the STEM fields, lucrative fields, as much as possible. So what happened eventually? The women's, it wasn't exactly intentional, but because Iran wanted to solve that problem, do you understand, of inadequate women in medicine and in the STEM fields, they now eventually ended up having more women than men. They now had that relative imbalance. In fact, Iran now performed so well in the STEM fields that, you see, I don't know if you've heard of this prize, the Fields Prize in Mathematics. The Fields Prize in Mathematics is essentially the Nobel Prize of mathematicians. Only 2 women have ever won the Fields Prize. One of them is Iranian. Can you imagine that? Only 2 women in the history of the world have ever won the Fields Prize in Mathematics. One of them happens to be Iranian. And that is how well the Iranian government have actually, sunk investment, STEM education, overall education, university education, specialist education in not just the general population, but in particular in women. And that is why you have 60% of university students in Iran being female and 70% of women, who are in the STEM field, being women. And you see, this is a lesson for the governments of the world. Invest in your population. Education elevates. Education frees people. Education gives them choices. Education makes them sterling citizens. And whenever it is time for them to stand to be counted, whenever the enemies come for that country, it is that educated, population that will stand in the face of the enemy and say, you are not going to destroy the system that has benefited the vast majority of us. And when it was time, and it was time for the women, to stand to be counted, the women of Iran were at the forefront. They were as brave as the men. They were as active as the men. They were as civically aware as the men, because the government of the day had pumped quality education into them. I hope you have learned from this story of mine on this episode of a Geomuseum. So again, don't forget to like, to share, to follow, to broadcast, and to ping the notification button so that you can always continue to have fresh insights into global geopolitics. See you on the next video. Thank you very much.